Hello everyone and welcome to this episode of TouchPoints TV. My name is Amanda Batista. I'm the Associate Editor of Retail TouchPoints. Today I'm here with Michael DeSimone, who's the CEO of FiftyOne. Michael, thanks for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here.
We are in Manhattan at the New York Times building on 8th Avenue. We have some very interesting things to talk about, some of the cool things that FiftyOne is up to, including the expansion and current activity in Australia. So can you explain, so you're the CEO of a CBT solution that's directly involved with the global market.
Right.
So can you explain the current economic situation and what is really the common pain points and what's driving retailers to do global expansion?
Sure. Ever since the economic slowdown in the U.S. in 2008, I think retailers in the U.S. have been looking for as many sources of growth as they can possibly find. And back then was also fortuitously for us when we launched the FiftyOne product. And I think international became one of the avenues that retailers chose to be able to demonstrate visible effort towards growth and be able to really leverage the direct platforms to reach a whole new group of consumers that they weren't reaching before.
Right.
Since then, I think the traction that American retailers have gotten internationally has really been sort of something to build on and has gained more and more traction amongst other retailers. So it's almost become a competitive imperative for retailers in the U.S. to look at international for the direct channel. Okay, great.
And so you work with a lot of interesting retailers, Bloomingdale's and Macy's, among others. So can you explain a little bit about the CBT technology and how it's helping retailers?
Sure. Our retailers have invested a lot of money in building out their e-commerce infrastructure. And as they built that e-commerce infrastructure, they built it primarily for the domestic market, for the U.S. market. And what our technology does is layer over their existing e-commerce technology to make it easy for them to sell to about 100 countries outside the U.S.
Okay.
It's intended really to allow them to leverage this investment that they made in their e-commerce infrastructure without having to make substantial changes to it, but then again reach this addressable market of about 1.5 billion people that live outside the U.S. borders and are countries that we can help them easily reach.
Right. And FiftyOne recently released some data on the Crossborder power shopper. So can you explain a little bit of detail on the attributes of that shopper and kind of what to expect from a behavioral standpoint of that shopper?
Sure. What we found when we did the research was that we found a tendency amongst different buyers, sometimes across multiple retailers, to make purchases again and again. So people kind of, in certain markets, that we're very interested in buying products from American brands. So I think what we saw was that there was a jump. There were people who bought once, there were people who bought twice, and then they kind of jumped to 5 times a year. And they spent more money. I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but I think it was something on the order of about 30% more per transaction basis. Just some other characteristics I think about our consumer base. I think we tend to appeal to, I would say, an age group ranging from the sort of low 30s up into the 50s. I think our customers are predominantly women, mostly because of the apparel that our retailers sell and the kind of looking at the merchandise that's being sold. So I think that's another characteristic of the power shopper.
Okay, great. And the U.S. retail experience is something that international consumers rather are drawn to. Can you expand on that and kind of what are the attributes of that experience and how does it differ from other experiences?
Sure. One of the things that I hear a lot in interviews and people ask me questions, they say, well, you're selling American products outside the U.S. And it's funny because we're not selling American products outside the U.S. We're primarily selling products that may have been made in China or Indonesia or other parts of the world to people in different other countries. And so I think really what people are interested in when they come to one of our customers' websites is the American buying experience, the American retail experience. And that's a combination of a lot of things. It's the breadth of merchandise that's available.
Right.
It's how the merchandise is presented, the sort of rich information that's available about the products. A lot of merchants have recommendation engines. They have, what's the right word, reviews. They have different things that make it, I think, a very appealing shopping experience, which is something that isn't replicated in our consumer's home country. Combine that with what, in many cases, is a significant price advantage of shopping in the U.S. due to competition and also the fact that the dollar is kind of on the low side lately. It makes it very appealing to buy from American retailers. So I think the combination of the overall experience, whether online or in person, I think people from outside the U.S. like to buy from American retailers. I think American retailers are the best in the world. I think indisputably in the online environment they're the best in the world. And I think that those things combining together make it a powerful opportunity for U.S. retailers to sort of extend all of that expertise to consumers outside the U.S.
So there's a real opportunity there, you think?
Absolutely, sure, yeah.
Okay, great. So do you have any general advice for retailers that are looking to expand globally, and kind of what are the first steps that they should take when they're blueprinting their international expansion strategy?
Yeah, I'm thinking about the advice. First of all, I think the advice is don't assume that that people outside the U.S. aren't interested in your products. I think some people do assume they wouldn't have an audience, they don't have a brand outside the U.S. And I think the first place to look is how much traffic is on your website that's not U.S. I think when we ask retailers those questions, they're surprised by how much. It's almost always a minimum of 10%, sometimes as much as 40%. So looking at that, really gauging what's the sort of latent, nascent international opportunity on my site right now in terms of people who are already there. And looking at that and really evaluating from there, does it make sense to start selling to people who want to buy from me? I hear stories from our retailers where they've had years of emails from consumers in different countries begging them, please, would you sell to me, ship to me? If I called you and gave my credit card number or wired you money, all kinds of different things and the retailers kept saying no, which is kind of an odd place to be. So I think there is almost in every case there's some level of demand. So I think the next step then is figuring out what you need to do to make the site welcoming to the international visitor. The last thing you want to do is make an international visitor dig through 4 pages of FAQs to figure out, do you ship to my country? Right. When they hit your site, let them know, I know you're there. We normally recommend that we do that with a flag, just a simple flag that indicates, sort of, hey, I know you came in from Australia. I just have the Australian flag up here. Ideally, a merchant should show only things that are relevant to that market. So if it's a U.S. merchant that has store locations, their store finder should be suppressed. So they should look to localize the site as much as possible for the person who's coming in. They should only show products that are available to that market. There's a lot of ways you can take it deeper and deeper and deeper. But I think an important takeaway in answering your question is you shouldn't have to assume that you have to start there. Often just turning on the lights in certain countries and sort of kind of feeling your way where the demand is and trying to make that latent demand that's already there, satisfying that is a great place to start.
Excellent. Well, Michael, thanks so much for taking the time to meet with us.
Thank you.
And thanks for everybody for watching.